In 1986, James Cameron, fresh off the success of The Terminator, is tasked with writing and directing a sequel to 1979 Ridley Scott Alien. Now, on paper, Cameron's muscular style of filmmaking doesn't seem like the best possible fit to follow up what is, after all, a contemplative, philosophical horror. But not only James Cameron managed to achieve one of the greatest box office success of that year, but actually to create one of the best science fiction / action movies of all time. And if you ask me personally, the best action movie of all time. So how did he manage? Let's see.
Ah, there goes our salvage, guys.
If you look at the current state in which the industry is, like it's full of reboots and remake and sequels and prequels, and most of the time it looks like the screenwriter coming to the page thinking, well, this is a new Ghostbuster movie. We don't need to worry about engaging people because they're going to be engaged because they love the original. And the same goes for any other IP that you can think of. Cameron approached the page in a completely different way.
How long was I out there?
So when the movie begins, we meet Ripley, our main character, and she is isolated and she is terrified. In just a handful of scenes, Cameron clearly established the fact that she's alone in the universe. She went through something nobody else can understand. For her, the events of Alien happened just a day before. She has been sleeping the whole time. So she's tormented by these horrifying nightmares about this creature she encountered, and rightfully so, we can completely understand why. Everybody she knows is dead. Nobody, literally nobody, knows what she's been through. And then she's given a chance.
They've lost contact with the colony on LV-426.
Cameron is not a flashy screenwriter. He's not the kind of guy who's gonna write flamboyant dialogues or mess up with the storyline. In order to understand his abilities, craftsmanship, you need to look at the scene he's not writing, at the dialogues he's not writing. It's like when, you know, your friend, when she's into jazz, tell you, like, you need to listen to the notes they're not playing. And you're like, I don't even know what that means. But that's exactly the point. Cameron is trusting the audience to be able to connect the dots and understanding what's going on. And what's going on is not that Ripley goes back despite being afraid.
There's no way.
Ripley is going back because she's afraid. She understands that I confront this fear now, or I'm gonna be slave to this fear for the rest of my existence. This is the only way out I have from this fucked up situation in which I'm in. And we immediately connect with that emotionally. That is the genius of the screenplay. It's saying, I'm gonna show you, this is gonna be the story. At the heart of it all, you know, behind all the space marines and the aliens and the spaceships and the guns, behind all of that, at the core of the movie, there's a very, very simple journey of a character confronting her fears, which is something absolutely universal. It's something that every single member of the audience can relate with. Another screenwriter, a less confident screenwriter, would have put more scenes to explain that Ripley's traumatized. I don't know, her crying under the shower, or having a dialogue with somebody, or drinking at the bar. All of that kind of cheesy stuff that you've seen in a million movies. It doesn't. 1, 2, 3, and we're going.
You're going out there to destroy them, right? Not to study, not to bring back.
Ironically, there could be a version of Aliens in which she dies at the end. And that could still be a positive ending if she was able, before doing that, to confront her fears.
All right, I'm in.
These, like, heighten the tension because it disconnects the success of the movie, the positive ending of the movie, from her survival. So now we're really like, I really don't know what's going to happen because now I have two goals that run simultaneously. It can definitely be that she achieved one, but she failed with the other. So there's more tension than what it would be otherwise.
All right, sweetheart, so what are you waiting for? Breakfast in bed? Another glorious day in the Corps.
Now, the same idea is at play when Cameron introduces us to the Space Marine. One thing I often said is that the mark of a great horror story is when the story will work without supernatural element. Like if you think about It, for example, okay, from Stephen King, there is so much meat that you can imagine a version of it without Pennywise, just focusing on the loser clubs. I'm not saying it will be better, but it will be possible. And that happens with so many great stories. You can imagine a version of The Thing without The Thing. Like, there is so much there already that we can imagine that story. And it's the same is true with Aliens. You can imagine a version of Aliens without the aliens, like just a Space Marine. And I know that people that love the movie were like, yes, I would love to see that. Because he's so good, Cameron is so good at laying down all of these different characters and making us feel that there's something there, and it is something precious. And what is precious is the web of relationship. And so we suddenly feel, oh, there is something to lose there. It's once again the game of predictions. Like, Cameron is very careful about showing us all of these different characters and their main traits. Like, okay, this is the silent leader, this is the good grunt, this is the incompetent commander, these two are friends and they're badasses, this is kind of like the idiot of a company, this is an android, and Ripley has a problem with this. This guy probably is a sleazebag. So by laying all the cards on the table, he's showing us with what he's going to play. And he's telling us, okay, try to predict how the movie's gonna go down. What is these different people gonna be doing? Cameron is like a magician that is about to do a magic trick. And he tells us, these are the elements I'm gonna use, okay? And you can probably kind of guess where we're going with this, but I'm gonna get there in a way you don't expect. Even if you're not conscious about it, your brain starts rushing around trying to connect the dots while the movie keeps going. So you don't have the time to realize what you're doing, but you're doing it and you get tense, increasingly more tense, because there's a lot of stuff that is gonna break. It's like one of those incredibly intricate chess opening in which you move a million pieces, but there's no capture. So all the pieces are on the board and there's a lot of tension. And you feel all of this tension at one point is gonna have to resolve itself and it's gonna be a mess. That's what Cameron is doing with outlining so well all of these different characters. Once this is established, like the group of Space Marines, we also have this theme of Ripley isolation.
No, is anything you can do?
Well, I can drive that loader.
We don't have a scene of her crying in her cabin, thinking, oh, nobody understands me, or talking to somebody to Burke, like, oh, these guys are assholes. No, she just showed up and said, okay, you're all busy, what can I do? And this scene is masterful, and it's masterful for another reason, too. At one point, he knows that Ripley is going to have to confront the Queen, or whatever big villain there is at the end of the movie. She's going to need tools to do this in order to win. And so he needs to see those tools throughout the story. He needs to show us the fact that Ripley knows how to use those tools. But Cameron being Cameron is like, well, first of all, I don't want this to be too obvious. And second of all, this could be the right place to put in a romantic subplot between her and Hicks. And it begins with this thing.
Where you want it?
Bay 12, please.
A well-designed scene, which is a well-thought scene in which you understand the movement of the story, means that you can have a reaction like a smile, and that smile tells you everything you need to know. Like one beat, one smile tells us, oh, Ripley's not alone anymore. She has made a very important step toward the positive outcome, because now she has allies, real allies. She has earned their respect. She's not completely isolated anymore. Now, all the elements for the story to truly begin, because we still haven't encountered the aliens. They are nowhere to be seen. We are on the planet now. They are getting into the facility, still no aliens. All the elements are in place but one, and an element is Newt. Now, I remember back in the days, I read a review, a feminist interpretation of aliens, in which the reviewer was complaining about the fact that, oh, Cameron once again forced the female character into the stereotypical role of the mother. And I was thinking, how little can you understand storytelling, really, when you are a movie critic especially? Because there's this concept in storytelling, which is called dramatization, which is when you take the internal conflict of the character and you turn it into an external conflict. So Ripley meets Newt, who's the only survivor on the planet because everybody else and her family have been slaughtered by the aliens. She doesn't connect with Newt because she's a woman and so she can only be a mother. She connects with Newt because Newt is the only living thing in the universe that went through what she went through. Like, they share a connection, which is inevitable because only the two of them understand what the other has gone through. But even more importantly, Newt is the representation in the physical world of Ripley's fear. Ripley has gone to the planet to confront her fears, and here you have a kid which is completely closed down and traumatized, rightfully so, considering what she's went through. Of course she needs to save Newt, because if she saves Newt, she saves herself. It's so obvious that it shouldn't be necessary to say it, but apparently it is. But that's the last element that we need. Now the goal of Ripley, which was a completely internal goal, now is an external goal, and that is going to come very useful, very handy later. Now all the pieces, as I said before, are on the board. Tension is mounting everywhere. There's so much at stake. The relationship between Ripley and Newt, the relationship between the Space Marines, Like, so much is there, and now it's time to get busy. And here's another element that makes Cameron such a great screenwriter. He never devalues his character.
I say we take off and nuke the entire site from orbit. It's the only way to be sure.
Every time the characters do the right thing, and the story fights back and destroy their hopes. And as we are rushing to try and understand what could they do, and they do the things that we would do, like you have a gigantic spaceship in orbit full of nuclear weapons, fucking nuke the place. And you feel like, yes, that sounds like a very good idea, but then it doesn't work. Okay, so let's just, bunker down, wait for the help. Yeah, but it doesn't work. And then we are lost. They are lost for options. They're like, what the hell are we supposed to do? And we are lost with options with them. So we and the characters find ourselves in the same place, which is insanely important, because now we are tense and terrified. It's like, Jesus, we feel like if I was there, I would be fucked because I have exhausted all of my options. If one of those characters made a stupid decision, and of course you have characters making stupid decisions, the commander, Hudson, but we understand why, because it's in their nature. But if the characters we are relying on will start making stupid decisions just because so the plot can keep going, or I can have an extra action scene, we would immediately disengage like, okay, this is not the movie I was expecting it to be. While all of this is happening, he needs to keep the pace up. So as we get into this, deep into the second act of the movie, we start discovering that all these characters that we understood so immediately, that was so easy to latch onto them. It's like, oh, Vasquez is a badass, but she also has a human side. Oh, Hudson is a piece of shit. But it's just because he's terrified. If you think about what they would do today, it would be so easy to devalue some of the characters. The Commander is a perfect example. And yet Cameron finds the time to give every character in the movie a moment of dignity. This attention to the situations in which the characters are in and the nature of the characters is a display everywhere. And we can see it once again with the romantic subplot. These are tough people in a super rough situation. So they don't connect about, oh, you have beautiful eyes. No, they connect out of mutual respect.
What's this?
That's a grenade launcher.
There's this concept, another concept which is so obvious in storytelling and all the time people fail to use, which is subtext. The characters are talking about something, but they're actually saying something different.
Yeah, I noticed.
Here, they're talking about guns. But what is going on is like, X telling her, you're a badass. And she's telling him back, you're a badass too. I think I kind of like you. While simultaneously giving Ripley yet another tool she's gonna need for the final confrontation in an elegant way.
How much time?
Plenty. 26 minutes.
We're not leaving!
We're not?
And then finally, they manage to escape, but they've lost Newt. Now, this is another brilliant moment, because when you watch the movie, there is no doubt in your mind that Ripley's gonna go back. But she has to go back, because once again, that is the reason she's here. Not to save Newt, but to confront her fears. And Newt is a physical representation of her fears. She cannot abandon Newt. There's no audience member that feel like, oh yeah, abandon the fucking kid. Because instinctively, apart from the fact that it would be a horrible thing to do, but you understand, she can't. If she does that, she loses. She needs to go back. And so you, as an audience member, find yourself in a situation in which you simultaneously don't want her to go back, but you know she needs to go back. And that is a great position to put your audience in for the final third of the movie. Look at what Cameron is doing here in the third act of the movie, toward the end of the movie, after he has squeezed us in every possible way he could. Now he introduced the Queen. Now it's like, and here's the new element about aliens that you've never seen before. And you're like, what the fuck? This guy is still cooking. It's like, we're toward the end of the movie and he's still throwing shit at me. This movie keeps coming at me from every fucking direction. And she escapes, but in the back of your mind, you know, this is not the end. Because there's no way in hell that this guy introduced this new element and just forget about it. There's a rule when you frame a shot that said that basically the more stuff you have in the shot, the longer it takes the audience to decode the shot. So if you have very busy shots and you cut them short, you have this sense of like the audience feels like they need to catch up. The same thing happens with a story. The more elements you have on screen, the more elements you have in your story, the faster the story is going to feel. This doesn't mean you should have a gazillion subplots and millions of characters. It can mean that. It can mean that, but that's not necessarily the case. Here you see how Cameron put down a few elements, but he thicken them. He make them denser and denser. There's a lot of relationship going in. There's a replay with Hudson, Hudson with Hicks, baskets with Hudson, etc., etc. Like a million different connections. So the web of connection is so thick because he has such familiarity with his characters that we feel there's so much on screen going on. So there's never a moment in which we feel like the pace is slowing down, even when the pace of the story it is actually slowing down. Now, you may think, since this all pretty basic stuff again, like he worked with very common elements, he didn't reinvent the wheel, that this is easy. And if you think it's easy, well, my suggestion would be go write the next Aliens and become a millionaire, because why not? What he did is not easy at all. It's only apparently simple. It's the illusion of the gymnast. When you see somebody who's so skilled and so trained in what they're doing that they make it look easy, and you're like, oh yeah, I could do that too. And then you try to do it, and you realize how difficult that really is. Once again, Cameron is the master of simplicity. And if you want a masterclass in storytelling, well, learn to decode his stories, because there is so much to learn from his approach to storytelling. See you next time.